I'm going off the rails on a crazy trail.
Kansas State, champions of the Big 12. They smell Oklahoma. This train is jumping. Kansas State has upset the third-ranked Texas Longhorns.
I'm going off the rails on a crazy trail.
All right, there we go. Great way to get it started, bring it in and everything. This a little different format for KSO Classic this week because we are looking at a whole season, and I was like, well, how do we start this thing? And one of the Cat Train videos that's out there in its highest form of quality is from the 2011 opener against Eastern Kentucky. It's the only piece of video we have from that game. Would have loved to have found Bryce Brown's fumble for you, or the Chris Harper catch that won the game towards the very end. No video to be found on the internet from that game. It was probably burnt by K-State. They didn't want anybody to see that ever again. So we don't have that for you, but we at least got the Cat Train there. And I would once again tell Chris Kleiman, bring that back. Why did you kill it off? So that's just my little plea there for everything.
I'm with you. I'm all about the Cat Train. That was really nostalgic to watch as the open. This one going to be a lot more like the KSO retro podcast back in the day because it's a full season.
Yeah, full season. And the reason for this is there were a handful of different games from this year that people said, oh, this is what you should watch. And then you go through and you look at this season, and almost every game could have been included in this. K-State played, obviously, 13 games this season. In the end, I think only 4 or 5 of them ended up being non-one-score games. So game 1, game 3, game 4, game 5, game 6, not game 7 or game 8, game 9, game 10, game 11, game 12. So yeah, that's 9 of the 13 that you played were all within one score. And that doesn't even, mention the fact that they got the Cotton Bowl close early in the third quarter. They got it to within a field goal. It was tied at halftime for the game with Oklahoma. Was not after halftime. There were moments where they were in every game, legitimately in it into the second half, even in the ones that ultimately ended up being blowouts or that they didn't win. And then for some of their victories, Kent State was never a contest, and we know that Kansas during that time wasn't producing competitive teams. But I'll start with this question, Drew, because we normally have some other things to kind of go to begin these things. Not really now because it's not one specific game. What do you remember, though, from the 2011 season, and more so the beginning of it? Because how that Miami game went really molded how everybody saw that team and what 2011 could be. I mean, I tell the story all the time that I absolutely know that I have negative tweets or Facebook posts from being 13 years old at the time and bashing Colin Klein because I'm sitting there in, what that would be the southeast corner of the end zone, watching him stink it up against Eastern Kentucky, and they barely win at the end of the game. So, game 1, you go, oh, this team might suck. And then they got it figured out rather quickly and had a knack for making big plays.
Yeah, the beginning of the season, I feel like was kind of like cautious optimism because 2010, it kind of felt like, oh, we're back. What does that really look like going forward? Then you start the season with just a disgusting game against Eastern Kentucky. Then you absolutely crush in game 2, and then it's like, okay, what does game 3 look like against Miami? Because I actually to prepare for this only watched the Miami game. I thought about watching a Texas A&M game to kind of really get back in the 2011 feels. But I know that for next off season, we're definitely going to do this again. And 2011 A&M deserves, I think, its own individual show.
I mean, 103 total points in the game. It deserves some respect, probably.
So watching that Miami game again, I texted you this. There isn't a lot of NFL dudes on this K-State team. That Miami team was pretty loaded for a team that wasn't very good. And to like go through and like experience the emotions again watching the Miami game was awesome. But I think the thing that I remember the most was a lot of my friends and we would like go into every game, and it all started kind of like midway through the West or the Eastern Kentucky game, all just kind of talking about how like we thought K-State was going to lose. So really like from Thursday, Friday, Saturday during the game, my friends and I would all kind of just make jokes about how we think that K-State's going to lose, and then it ended up all working out at the end, except for obviously a couple times that season. So it was kind of like a little superstition that my friends and I all had. We still refer to it as like the reverse psychology year, where it was every week going into it. It was like, I can't believe that they're going to lose it again. But then they kept winning, and they kept making big plays to win games.
Yeah, so I was an 8th grader this season. And I tell the story too about 7th grade. It was the best feeling ever getting to walk into school after K-State had just obliterated KU on that Thursday. The fact that this is a very pivotal moment in young sports fans' lives. Like, I don't think you're going to get more distraught about how other people talk to you or treat you about the teams you root for than when you're between the ages of 11 to 14 years old. Like, it's really emotional, and it's like, so when K-State goes on a run like this, and they're a legitimate team. I mean, they're in the top 10 late in the season, and like legitimate Big 12 title contention. That's an exciting thing to have. And just, I mean, I remember being jealous of the kids at school that were like, "Oh yeah, here's what my Cotton Bowl ticket looks like." I'm like, "Oh well, great for you, you know." Enjoy that loss to Arkansas. I at least one up you, and I got to go watch them lose in the Fiesta Bowl the next year to Oregon. Better team, better bowl, all that, whatever. It just was. I mean, this was a fun time. Like, if you're not going to be in college when these types of seasons happen, I think you want to be around that age range. Like, I look back on it now, and I think from when Michael Beasley showed up on campus to, that 2012-13 academic year where they win the Big 12 in football, basketball, and baseball. I think if you're not going to be in school during that period, you would have wanted to have been like me, where you're between 9 and 14 years old and getting to experience it in a pretty emotional way. That's really the only thing that mattered to me back then. I had nothing else to worry about. I never gave a damn about school. So it's like, what are the Cats doing? But we'll get into all of it. And I did find it. So again, I've also alluded to before, my dad, frugal man, which, I get it. The more kids I have, the more I realize, you're not just paying for one person now or two. Now I'm paying for 4. He was paying for 5 back then. We typically only went to non-conference football games unless somebody gave us tickets. And we weren't poor by any means either. It was just like, not doing that. So we were at the Eastern Kentucky game. I think that was one of 2 2011 football games that I was at. This is a Facebook post from yours truly inside of Bill Snyder Family Stadium at the time. There you go. I mean, no capitalization whatsoever, which, I mean, would drive me nuts now. And yeah, at least I didn't try putting it on other people. I also must have, in the moment, thought Colin Klein was going to be great. And I was having second thoughts. Good thing that I'm an idiot and Colin Klein's one of the best in school history, the way that the season ended up playing out. But why would I tweet something like that? Well, game 1 of the 2011 season against EKU, the Colonels, you'd also probably be surprised, like, oh, there's no way that this is like a family rivalry. My oldest cousin went to Eastern Kentucky, believe it or not. He does not give a damn about Eastern Kentucky. He's actually a TCU fan now. His wife went to TCU.
That might be worse.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, their son, I did not enjoy being around him in 2022 when we were down there. And he was like 9 years old. So that goes back to what I'm talking about, where 9 to 14 is like a very emotional and pivotal time as a fan. Bryce Brown fumbled in this game in a really bad spot. It set up the only Eastern Kentucky score because he fumbled it at the K-State 20. It got taken back to the K-State 1 yard line, and Eastern Kentucky punched it in 2 plays later for a touchdown. Bryce Brown did not last long in purple, which was disappointing at the time because you're thinking, oh, this is legit. We've got this awesome running back in the fray now. This is going to be great for K-State. Didn't end up working out, but it's okay because John Hubert turned out to be pretty solid. The game featured multiple missed field goals by both teams in this game. There were 3 total interceptions. K-State fumbled the ball 3 times in the game as well, but Colin Klein hit Chris Harper over the middle in the end zone for 33 yards with just over a minute left to go up 10-7. Nigel Malone had a 2 interception game, which would become a pretty common theme throughout this season, including the final Eastern Kentucky drive, which ultimately sealed the win. So K-State got a nail-biting 10-7 win over Eastern Kentucky. Game 2, they beat up on Kent State 37-0. I mean, that was Kent State, still not very good, but they were terrible back then. Colin Klein ran for 139 yards and 2 touchdowns, but it was 34-0 at halftime, so K-State didn't do a lot in the second half. So a 2-0 start of the season. You haven't played anybody remotely good, and it's looked a little shaky at times offensively. Do you have anything to toss in on the first 2 games of 2011, Drew?
Honestly, not a whole lot. The first 2 games, there's nothing really noteworthy other than, like, when you look at the stats, I'm so glad that Eastern Kentucky game, there's no clips of it anywhere. Both teams could not pass the ball, or like Eastern Kentucky had like 19 carries for 10 yards.
I thought about reaching out to one of the sports guys in Wichita at one of the TV stations and saying, hey, you guys have like in your files anywhere 2011 K-State Eastern Kentucky, so I could at least have the Chris Harper touchdown. Then I was like, I'm not subjecting these people to going to look for that for me. Also, I shouldn't have said guys. That's on me. There are a lot of women also rocking the sports game in Wichita. So I don't want to disrespect any of the hard workers at Cake or KSN or KWCH. KWCH, by the way, I hear some people refer to it as K-Witch. I've never called it that in my life. Grew up in Hutchinson for 18 years. Anyways, moving on. Game 3 of the season, though. You talk about this time frame for people like you and me, Drew. K-State on the road at Miami, game number 3. Like this is an exciting matchup, and they talked about it on the broadcast where it was Clay Matvick and Brian Greasy had the call of this game, and they were alluding to Bill Snyder doesn't like playing these road non-conference games, so it's a rarity to get this. This would be on par, even though not the caliber of team, but like. This is like K-State playing USC in the early 2000s, or when the series with Auburn was set up, and what was 07 when they played at Auburn, 07 or 08. And then obviously the return game was later down the road. Like that is the caliber of non-con game. You don't get it all that often, especially if you're K-State, because these teams that are setting these up, they want them to be of either a guaranteed win against a fellow Power 5 school, or it needs to be one that certainly back in this era wasn't going to ding their resume and make them drop too far in the pool. So it's tough, I think, sometimes to find what people would consider these marquee matchups. K-State gets it with Miami. They go down there. They're up 14-3 at halftime. So they are jumping all over Miami. You feel good, but then Miami's able to get back into this thing. They lead 24-21 at one point. And then ultimately it comes down to after K-State was able to get in the end zone and take the lead back at 28-24, Miami moves the ball down the field with minimal time left and sets up for what's probably the most important stretch of plays in this season, and probably the number one thing that people remember from this game is the goal line stand down in Miami, where they were playing not just where the Dolphins play, but where the Marlins used to play. And that's why Colin Klein's elbows still bleed to this day because of the infield dirt still being on the ground there. This is a little over 2.5 minutes you're going to get of all of the plays that set up like the goal line situation, and then ultimately the review that came after. Second straight week, we've got highlights that include a lengthy review. We'll talk about it after we view it.
Here comes that rush. Harris has time to the end zone. Incomplete, but a flag. Nigel Malone is going to be
that was, a weak pass interference call.
That is pretty tough.
Calhoun the lead back. And they're going to throw. Incomplete. Almost caught by Clyde Balford. Second and goal. It's James. Stood up at the 1-yard line and pushed back. James stopped again. Meshach Williams there at the point of attack. Big shift.
It's only 2 guys out on 3 receivers.
Harris rolling to the left, looking to the end zone. He's going to run it. Hit at the goal line, but he got in. Touchdown, Miami.
And I'll pause it there for a second. It's pretty immediately clear based off of body language. I know, like, as an emotional 13-year-old fan sitting at home, I think I had the house to myself. I'm sure my family was wasting their time watching my brothers play soccer in Wichita. I hated fall and spring weekends growing up, if you can't tell. K-State's defense has a lot of guys immediately, like, emphatically saying, no, he was down, like that, no. And you can tell also by the way that Ja'Cory Harris is acting that he doesn't think that he got in. He knows that he was stopped short. Al Golden's a nerd.
Trey Walker had him, but Ja'Cory Harris willed himself into the end zone.
That's not the face of a guy that looks like
this game should end in this fashion after a hard-fought game.
He knows.
Ja'Cory Harris makes
right
a
there,
decision to pull it down. The question is, did he extend the ball over, break the plane before his knee came down? And
by a mile he's short.
The ball has clearly not crossed the plane of the goal line, and his knee.
Hey, what are you looking at?
Going upstairs for an official review, and
calling that a touchdown.
You can see it at home, folks.
Yeah, I don't know. You're about to get another replay of this.
The weak side linebacker out of
Matt
Olathe,
Walters,
Kansas, who added 20
K-State
pounds
sideline
to his frame
reporter in the background
off-season.
in the white shirt, just to the right on your screen of where the official at the goal line is.
And all 20 came to his advantage.
He's going to be aghast
right there.
I mean, he can't believe it, as he shouldn't have with that call.
I think they'll have a picture of that play.
After further review, the runner's knee was down prior to the ball breaking the plane of the goal line. Therefore, the result of the play, first down, Kansas State.
And that's the right call.
That ref was not ready for the moment, by the way. Just clearly nervous. He kind of butchered the announcement there. But K-State gets the win, 28-24. Down in Miami Gardens, and they return home with a perfect non-con, and they start conference play with Baylor coming to town. Number 15 Baylor. This is so you get a top 25 team. Robert Griffin III has started the season incredibly hot. He hasn't thrown an interception going into the game. He would ultimately win the Heisman Trophy this season, and K-State, there's a lot going on in this game. Once again, K-State kind of in this battle here. Before the game even started, though, I want to point this out. I was looking around YouTube last night. Do you know who was in the studio before this game kicked off, Drew?
Probably not, with how you're acting.
Mike Gundy, on his bye week, went to Bristol and was in the studio and was doing pregame with Jesse Palmer and John Anderson before this game kicked off, which is an insane thing. Like, that would not happen now. I don't think any college football coach would go and do that. I mean, even then, I can't imagine that Oklahoma State fans were thrilled. Now, they ended up winning the Big 12 that year, so not a big problem. They didn't lose until later, but that's one of those that was just it was really crazy to me. But that's non-game related stuff. Before we get into that, though, do you have anything from the Miami game that you want to point out, since you said that you went back and watched through most of it?
Yeah, Miami game, like looking at it again, just crazy because that Miami team had a lot of NFL guys, and to see them like ended up not having like a great season with all that NFL talent was pretty funny. The end sequence is still insane to watch to this day. Number one, because in no world should Nigel Malone have been called for pass interference. And then number two, in no world was that even like remotely close to a touchdown on the last play. So to win despite getting like hosed twice in a span of like less than a minute in game time was fun. Our friend Scott Wildcat, does all the Blitz Month shows, and one of his favorite questions is, what is like the pendulum game for K-State? The Miami game was the pendulum that swung really in K-State's favor the rest of the way. If they lose that game, I don't know what the rest of the season looks like.
Yeah, it's so strange because it's not. They played like a different team after that game. They played better. Like you had to be good to go and win that game given the circumstances of how things were starting. But like that wasn't a great Miami team. They went 6-6. You talked about a lot of NFL talent there. I think they had 6 NFL draft picks the following season, including guys that ended up being all Pro Bowlers. Olivier Vernon was on that team. Lamar Miller had a good run as a running back. Like they had legitimate guys on that team. 2 wide receivers got drafted from that team, but they weren't good. And I would also say this about Al Golden: you can't be rocking the tie in the 21st century as a football coach if you're not going to be like really good. So that's just what I would go with there. On to Baylor, though. So we have the look for K-State, number 15 Baylor. Some overview of how this game played out. There's kind of a lot in this. It was another 100-yard rushing game for Colin Klein. K-State trailed 21-19 at halftime. Bill chased the points in the first half, so he went for the 2-point conversion to try and tie it up. It didn't work out. K-State immediately takes the lead on their first possession of the second half, but Baylor comes right back and answers. Baylor's up 35-26 with 3 minutes left in the third quarter. Then K-State goes down with just a little over 5.5 to play. They cut the deficit to 2 points, 35-33 after a Colin Klein touchdown. They started near midfield thanks to a missed Baylor field goal. On the second play of the drive, Baylor ends up turning the ball over because RG3 throws that fateful pick to Arthur Brown, and Anthony Cantelli would hit the go-ahead field goal. Baylor only gained 8 yards on their kind of last gasp, and that's going to be another common theme that we talk about with this season. There were a lot of situations where K-State scores late, and on the final drive, the other team has a chance, and they were never even able to pick up the first down. So here are some of the highlights from K-State's matchup with Baylor in 2011, including the Arthur Brown interception.
3rd and 3.5. Here comes the blitz. Klein floats it over the middle. Hubert's got it and walks into the end zone for the touchdown. No one was home in the middle of the field for Baylor.
Trying to force a negative play.
They rush 4. Klein well protected. He's going end zone for Harper. And he's got it. Touchdown, Kansas State. Klein buys what he can, and he's loose. Klein down the sideline. Out of bounds inside the 20. Angelo Pease back in to take the direct snap. Cuts it back up inside and walks into the end zone with a K-State touchdown. They'll throw it again. Interception. Bobbled and held on to by Arthur Brown. The first interception of the season thrown by Robert Griffin. And it sets up Kansas State in the red zone. Batted down at the line. Jordan Volker knocked it down, and Kansas State is about to win it.
And there you get a very frustrated Art Briles at the end because they lost the game. And there was some dancing on the defensive line by K-State where they almost went off sides, but they were able to get back on before the ball was snapped. I'm sure that that's what Art Briles was mad about, but as we know, he is a massive loser.
Yeah, he can get wrecked.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to feel bad for him. He certainly never felt bad for any other people in his life. So K-State takes down Baylor, and you talk about Miami being the pendulum game. The Baylor game's like the fire starter for K-State now, where it's like, okay, something's cooking here. Where you get a win like that, it's Baylor was a good team. You make the big plays, and very next time out, K-State's in this nice situation where they get back-to-back home games. So game number 5 of the year, K-State has jumped into the top 25. Number 20 in the country, and it is going to be the final matchup with Missouri as conference mates. And very first play of the game, Ty Zimmerman picks off James Franklin, sets K-State up immediately. They ultimately would score a touchdown. Here is the start of that game, which they joined in progress. So K-State already had the ball like however many seconds in, and I'm sure people that would have been watching this go, oh, I guess maybe they had a big kick return. That's why they're already down there or something. No, Missouri already had a possession, but Ty Zimmerman picks it off, and Carter Blackburn has to get everybody up to speed on that.
Kansas State Wildcats have it second down inside the Missouri 20. Carter Blackburn with Brock Stewart, an entire ABC crew. Let's go back to the interception on the first play from scrimmage of the game.
Missouri won the toss, selected to take the ball. First play of the game, the young sophomore quarterback making just his 5th start was staring down that inside receiver, and Ty Zimmerman all over it. Unflappable, poised. That's what Gary Pinkel said about James Franklin. Not the way you want to start the game on very first pass this afternoon.
Just the second interception thrown by...
So there you go. Ty Zimmerman gets the interception, gets it started for K-State. And really, despite what the score says and low scoring, it really wasn't ever much of a contest. K-State pretty consistently had it at a double-digit game, and it wasn't until late that Missouri got it within 7. But there was really never any real threat of Missouri doing anything in that game. And so you take a week off from the offense, but then the very following week, Game 6, K-State heads down to Lubbock, and they face Texas Tech, where this was the ultimate kind of duality of man game. Colin Klein, 12 of 18 for 146 yards in this game. Seth Dagey, 43 of 63, 461 yards in this game, passing. Texas Tech outgained K-State 580 yards to 339 in Game 6 of the season, but they turned it over 4 times. K-State didn't give it away at all, and this game had 2 massive plays in it that ultimately would cost Texas Tech and why K-State would have such a yardage deficit. Third play of the game resulted in a Nigel Malone pick 6, and then Tyler Lockett would later go on and start the second quarter with a 100-yard kick return touchdown. K-State went up by 10. Texas Tech kicked a field goal, recovered the onside kick with 2.5 minutes to play. And like I said, in the Baylor game, a theme would develop. Tech only gained 6 yards and turned the ball over on downs to ultimately lose the game. And I'll give you the Texas Tech highlights here for K-State.
A 3rd and 10 early.
Joel Myers on the call, by the way. FSN GOAT.
Very nostalgic FSN.
Marquez in motion. Ton of time for Dagey, and it's picked, and it's going the other way for 6. Touchdown, Nigel Malone. That makes it 4 over the first 5+ games for Nigel Malone. And I'm talking about interceptions. Boy, do they capitalize on mistakes. Along with Tremaine Thompson.
No, wait, not sure why he said Nigel Malone like that.
Yeah, Nigel. That was weird.
The middle, it'll be Lockett from the 1. Nice lane over to the right side. Angles it beautifully up the middle. He might go the distance. Do they have an angle? He's run complete illegal run away from them. Lockett's in. Touchdown, K-State.
Drew, you may know this already. Do you know who was the analyst on this game with Joel Myers?
Oh, is this a Petros and Joel Myers game?
No, even better than that. It's a young Joel Klatt.
Oh.
So there you go. That's the Tyler Lockett 100-yard kick return. Anthony Cantelli would miss the PAT after that, by the way.
You say it's like a duality of man game. Feels like every K-State Texas Tech game in Build 2.0, Texas Tech would have like 3 times the amount of yards that K-State would, and K-State would still find a way to win because they'd have at least one non-offensive touchdown.
Yeah, except for 2015. Tech exercised some demons that day. Game 7 of the season. This was the only other game of 2011 that I was at, staying with my cousin, who I guess at the time would have been a sophomore at KU. He was nice enough to let me go stay with him and go to the game, and got to go see K-State win 59-21. The Cats had jumped all the way up to number 11 in the AP poll at this point in time. On the day, Colin Klein, 4 rushing touchdowns, 1 passing touchdown. Tyler Lockett had 5 catches for 110 yards and a touchdown. Samuel Lemur had the last touchdown of the game with an 11-yard run, and this was the most notable play from the matchup with Kansas.
With you. And 75-degree day in Lawrence as the kickoff from to Lockett. And Lockett, little stutter step, 30, watch out. He's got 1 to beat. 45 stays in bounds. Down the sideline, Tyler Lockett. Oh, mama. Touchdown, Wildcats.
What patience he showed, letting his blocking set up for him. Man, unbelievable effort. And again, another unscripted, unconventional score. Lockett takes it to the house. And Whataburger, what a play right here. Watch him hesitate, let his blocking set up, and he finds the crease, and then it's just a sprint. Bad angle by the kicker. Kicker's not going to catch him. Lockett says, see ya. Post.
More W's up. Whataburger, what a play.
More FSN goats on the call. I was also at this game.
Dave Lapham, so good. He loved David Garrett.
Also, just remember, like, everybody being so, like, collectively pissed off that K-State had to play back-to-back years in Lawrence.
Yeah, which, funny enough, then, with kind of going through this and looking at some of it, like, yeah, that always stuck out to me. It's like, okay, how does that work out? That was kind of dumb, but enjoyable nonetheless to get to experience that. Later that night, K-State, I was sitting around with my cousin and his roommates thinking, oh, this is awesome. And he had 2 of his friends from high school were also there that weekend. They went to K-State. So they were up there. So I at least had some Wildcat compatriots with me. And we're sitting there watching Oklahoma, Texas Tech and thinking College Game Day is going to be in Manhattan next week. It was not, because Oklahoma ended up missing some field goals, or at least one crucial field goal, if I'm remembering right. I think that was Michael Honeycutt, right, that missed it.
Yeah,
feels like he was there forever. But
I'm also going to go ahead and say bullshit that they didn't go to Manhattan anyway. If they really talk about Manhattan like some people at ESPN do, they would have just gone anyway. But they actually, this is when they started to not care about the Big 12. They don't care about the Big 12 enough that they aren't even going to Dublin.
Yeah, which is BS. She'll go for Florida State, Georgia Tech, but not a top 25 matchup. Let's see. Is there somewhere that lists the locations by year where they went? Like, I would like to know where they went instead that week in 2011.
Either way, should have been in Manhattan.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. What weekend was that game then? Because it was
October 29th, 2 days before Halloween.
I mean, this is going to maybe come across as a waste of time, but actually, guess what? I found it. Instead, they went to, you said October 29th?
Yes.
They went to number 4 Stanford and number 20 USC.
So they turned down a top
10
matchup.
Top 10, right?
Top 10 matchup.
I think it was 8. I think it was 8-9. K-State was 8. Oklahoma was 9 going into that game.
Yeah, that's when they started to not care about the Big 12 anymore.
It turns out, though, they would be served right because that USC Stanford game went to triple overtime and K-State got their ass kicked.
Well, game day comes to Manhattan, K-State wins.
But it was 23-17 at halftime. Nigel Malone had 2 more picks in the game, but K-State wasn't able to keep it tight. They had to bounce back and try to recover because their next game up was the other part of the Bedlam rivalry. They went to face number 3 Oklahoma State in Stillwater. K-State had slipped from number 8 to number 14 in the polls. Oklahoma State would ultimately win 52-45, but this game was all over the place. It was 27-24 at halftime, Oklahoma State on top. Colin Klein and K-State fumbled at the 4 on the first possession that they had in the game. So they were at the K-State 4. They fumbled. They were down 14-0. Alan Chapman had a pick 6 of Brandon Whedon, which put K-State ahead 24-17. So they had brought it all the way back to that point. And then K-State took the lead with just over 5 minutes left at 38-37. They immediately gave up 67 yards on 2 plays, and Oklahoma State was back in front. But then immediately, K-State has the opportunity because Tyler Lockett took a kickback 80 yards to the O-State 20. K-State tied it with 2.5 minutes to go at 45, so it's 45-45. Oklahoma State was able to score, and towards the end, K-State made it interesting because they're moving the ball down the field. There's a big 22-yard pass to Chris Harper that got K-State to the Oklahoma State 5 with just a few seconds left, but K-State was able to get 3 plays off, and they almost hit Chris Harper on second down. He had the ball in his hands. It got popped out, and then on third down, the final play of the game, the ball was thrown incomplete. Colin Klein had to try to force it to a receiver, and looking back on it, I don't have the clip for you from this one. It's just Colin Klein was really good about being patient. It's way easier said than done, but there is a significant lane there for him. If he just peeks behind him a little bit or just to the left, he could have ran in maybe and forced that into a situation where K-State's either kicking to go to overtime or going for 2 to win the game. And that would be my what if from this season is like, if Chris Harper catches that ball, or you do find a way to punch it in after you kind of made magic happen this entire game, like, hey, you go to overtime, take your chances. We know K-State obviously had OT luck later in the year. But even if not, like, you find a way to win this, like this team wins the Big 12 then in that scenario, because they would have been 11-1 and O-State won Bedlam that year. And Oklahoma had some other losses as well. So, like, you would have been tied with O-State. You would have gotten the Fiesta Bowl bid out of it, and maybe you win back-to-back Big 12 titles. But, like, and that's such a fun game for people to look back on. Like, if K-State had won that, that's an easy KSO Classic game for us to do because it's got everything we want.
If we were going to do a loss, that would have been, I think, the one that we would have done.
But what most people probably remember from that game is what came afterwards when Kirk Herbstreit is doing a Sports Center hit with Chris Fowler after the game.
You still got to outscore them, though. They got a national championship pitch and catch tandem from Whedon to Blackman once again. But now, Kirk, the focus really does narrow. At Texas Tech, at Iowa State, those are the next 2 challenges for Oklahoma State. And then, of course, the Bedlam game as they'll face a Sooners team that will not have Ryan Broyles as a result of his almost certain knee injury here today. So Oklahoma State stocked up based on their escape and the Broyles injury. Alabama, where will they fall in the polls in your mind, and what does the result here have to say about a potential rematch if the Pokes and Stanford lose?
Chris, just to let you know, dead serious, as I've been talking to you, we just had, I think, an earthquake, aftershock here. So I literally thought the stadium was rocking, like people were stepping down off of this platform I'm on. But we had a little aftershock. So what was your particular question about Oklahoma and Oklahoma State's defense? Was it about?
So here's what I would say is I'm one of those that kind of I'm getting off the Kirk Herbstreit bandwagon day by day here. But like legitimate warranted fear by him, because the way that the press box situation is at Oklahoma State is pretty frightening. Your first time up there, or if something like this were to happen. So there's the main press box area, which you know how it is, Drew. But to get up to where the TV and radio guys sit, it's literally on top of the roof of the building. So imagine if at K-State, instead of the TV and radio guys being in the main press box area where also the suites are and everything, they were in this little trailer that's basically attached on top of the West Stadium Center. That's essentially what it is at Oklahoma State. And the railing situation isn't great. It's wide, so it feels like, if you tumble, you're rolling off or something. It's not like a narrow thing where you're holding on to great. It's like you're walking on a sidewalk or a big road up there. It's being up there for an earthquake. That would be a frightening experience for sure. But anyways, K-State, they do not win that game. They had to come back and wild bounce back. They stayed at 14 in the rankings. They faced Texas A&M, final time playing A&M as Big 12 members. It was 14-0 Texas A&M early in the game. It was 14-14 by halftime. They go back and forth throughout the second half. K-State had to kind of make a mad dash to tie it towards the end. Like a lot of these games this year, there was a lot of late scoring involved, but K-State made the big plays, and then this is the iconic quadruple overtime game. So here are the highlights from K-State and Texas A&M in the 2011 season. Probably the second most talked about game from this year behind Miami.
Play action on first down. It's intercepted at midfield. That's Nigel Malone with his 7th interception of the season. Klein wants it all. Harper behind the defense. Hauls it in. Touchdown, Kansas State. We're back to a one-score game. 44-yard attempt from Anthony Cantelli. The 44-yarder is good. Tied 31-all with down 10 in the fourth, even it at 31. Colin Klein to pass on the first play of overtime. Harper, did he haul it in? Yes, he did, inside the 10. Junior from Colorado, keeper on second and goal, picking his way into the end zone. Touchdown. Tannehill to the end zone, caught, touchdown. Fuller makes the grab. Ellie to send us to a third overtime. Cantelli's 38-yarder is good. For Colin Klein in Kansas State, heavy pressure coming. Room to run for Klein from the 25. He will take it all the way into the end zone for a Kansas State touchdown. Fourth rushing touchdown of the day for Colin Klein. Tannehill pressure. Tannehill heaves it to the end zone. It is caught for a touchdown. Watch it. Tannehill's pass is tipped and incomplete. We are headed to a... This 20-yarder is good. So number 4. Klein throws to the end zone for Thompson. It is incomplete. Flags down. Pass interference. Klein is in. Touchdown.
You already know who pushed them in.
Oh, yeah. KSO Classic Hall of Famer Braden Wilson shows up in everything we do. I mean, that's an electric game, an all-timer for K-State football.
And the NCAA's taking that from us because now we had 2-point shootout.
Yeah, because that takes so long, and then we've got guys water gun fighting for 2-point conversions. If you're one of those old school people that you said, boy, 103 total points, that sucked, too much offense, you would have loved what happened the next week in Austin. Number 13 K-State, number 23 Texas. The Cats win it 17-13. It was 10-3 at halftime. Kind of a gross game down there, but just before the half, Colin Klein hits Chris Harper for the touchdown.
At the 14. Crowd getting into it. Klein. Sideline. Touchdown. Back shoulder throw. Chris Harper makes the grab. And Kansas State puts 6 on the board.
So K-State was able to handle business. They beat Texas and Case McCoy down there. The next week, K-State, I mean, this was where the Iowa State stuff, it certainly wasn't in full speed yet, but where you started to have a situation where Iowa State was, for some reason, always hanging around in these games when you felt like they probably shouldn't have been with some of these K-State teams. And K-State only beats Iowa State 30-23 to close out the season. It wrapped up a 10-2 regular season for the Cats. It sent them to the AT&T Cotton Bowl, where they got a matchup, top 10 matchup, K-State number 8, Arkansas number 6. K-State got down big, came within 3 early. They were down 19-0. Got within 3 early in the third quarter, but didn't score again, and ultimately ended up losing 29-16. But it was a we're back type of deal, getting the experience for people that got to go to Arlington and be in the Cotton Bowl again, be in one of those iconic bowl games. It set the stage for obviously what ended up being a just as incredible and enjoyable 2012, where K-State wins the Big 12, gets to go back to their third Fiesta Bowl in school history. And I mean, the 2 years of these teams is some of the most fun. I know the olds, even the young olds like John Kurtz, that era, people love to try and tell us youngsters, oh, 2011, 2012 doesn't hold a candle to 97, 98, that time. I understand it. But there are also a lot of K-State fans where those 2 years, those are the most special teams to us. And I don't know that there's going to be a K-State team that can replace that in my lifetime. They were fine when I was in college, but there wasn't anything to write home about them. Like 2011, 2012, that's my K-State football.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. That is the era that I remember the most from K-State, like how K-State football like really shaped like what I wanted to do when I grew up, and wanting to always be a part of it. So that season was so much fun and had so many like back and forth moments. Like I'm looking at the full schedule right now again. Do you know how absurd it is to hear? And this is just the era that it was, and football was a lot more regional. K-State played on 8 different networks.
So I'm going to guess, well, we know ABC, ESPN, ESPN2.
I need to go back and look. I don't think ESPN.
Okay, well, we'll shelve it. ESPNU.
ESPNU, yes.
That was the Miami game. FX was the Texas game. I was going to say that's something that's aged poorly, is when Fox was putting their best college football game of the day on FX, because the OU game in 2012 was an FX game, I believe. And then, well, FSN, as we know. Let's see. Fox had the Cotton Bowl rights.
Yeah, and you're just missing 2 more, actually. So there was 9 different networks.
And then, well, so the Eastern Kentucky game would have been on K-State HD TV.
Yes.
And then I'm going to guess that it would be the like FCS channel, Fox College Sports, had one of the games.
Yeah, had Kent State. So 9 different networks and 13 games.
And I think those FCS, that the Fox College Sports game with Kent might have been shown locally to some, like Cox 22 might have had it on there. But yes, I remember that.
Like that is absolutely unheard of now to have a team play on that many different networks, because everything is national.
Yeah.
Somebody posted this on the board, and I don't even remember what thread it was in, but it said like the people that talk about how like a game is going to be nationally broadcast on ESPN, like ESPN Plus is a national broadcast.
Yeah.
Like everything is national. No games are regional. So if you're one of those people that says it's going to be nationally broadcast, you better be saying that also about ESPN Plus.
And it's why I say, like, if technology had advanced just like 10 years quicker and TV had modernized to the way it is now, you probably avoid a lot of the serious conference realignment that took place during this era, because it was all about TV. And 4 or 5 years later, it was irrelevant because it was consolidated down to where it was K-State was playing on, ESPN Plus or whatever, one of those services would be FSN, all those. Like, it was just chopped in half a lot more. The regionality of TV had been taken out. We're tight on time here. I have to make it to a doctor's appointment on time for my daughter. We'll go through some categories real quick. Best play for me, I think it has to be the Trey Walker stop on 4th down at Miami, just because we talked about it. That set the stage for this entire season. To me, it's the most iconic play from this year.
I'm actually going to do Arthur Brown interception of RG3. Kind of similar vibe, though.
Yeah, true. And there are a lot of people that would put that right up there with probably one of the 3 loudest specific play moments in K-State history at Bill Snyder Family Stadium. Worst play, I think you have to give it to the goal line series to end Oklahoma State, just because you get 3 chances from inside the 5-yard line. And I know you were limited on time, so you couldn't just like explicitly run it with Colin Klein, but unfortunate that you have the human battering ram back there, the guy who scored more touchdowns in a single season than anybody in K-State history, and you're not able to find a way to punch it in. And looking back on it now, knowing how the rest of the season shook out, like that's a kick in the gut to look back and think of just how close K-State was to winning that game.
Mine is any offensive play from the Eastern Kentucky game in the first half.
Yeah, well, that's fair. What aged well? Anything aged well out of this era that at the time you wouldn't have necessarily thought of? Obviously, for me on September 3rd, opening night, it was Colin Klein. What else sticks out in that category or aged poorly?
I think that what aged well, John Hubert, I remember not really being super excited that he was going to be the lead back after Bryce Brown fumbled and then never got the ball again. It felt like also just, I think the thing that aged well was, and especially looking back on like what we have now, K-State taking a chance on transfers.
Yeah.
Like you really look at a lot of the big playmakers were some transfers or freshmen playing early. So I think that both of those things aged well and then end up also reversing course and aging poorly towards the end of Bill 2.0.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you look at that team, Arthur Brown, Miami, Chris Harper, Oregon, like those were 2 really, really important pieces to what made this team go. The other that I'll throw out here with, MVP, I assume we're giving to Colin Klein. I mean, I already mentioned 40 touchdowns accounted for. It's the most in K-State history in a single season. My underrated player that I'm going to throw out because there were early struggles in the season is Anthony Cantelli, because you see a lot of those games, the field goals were needed, and early in the season, it was pretty shaky. And like, that's why, like, even into 2012, I was like, oh, Anthony Cantelli, really? But you realize that there was a shift there partway through 2011 where he became pretty reliable, and he hit some big kicks in a lot of those games that K-State ultimately turned into wins that made that season so special.
Mine is an underrated guy for what he did at K-State, and I didn't realize how good he was in 2011 again until I really dove into the stats. Meshack Williams, 7 sacks in 2011.
I love Meshack Williams. Notable moments from the broadcast. I mean, I mentioned them throughout this. The fact that Mike Gundy was doing pregame in Bristol for K-State Baylor instead of, spending the bye week in Stillwater or out recruiting. And then also the fact that we got Kirk Herbstreit about dying in an earthquake on ESPN after the Oklahoma State game. Random player, I think you have to give this shout out to Bryce Brown. He only played in 3 games this season and then jumped ship. A lot of excitement. He transfers in from Tennessee with his brother Arthur, and you're like, you got these 2 elite athletes now. It worked out obviously really well for Arthur Brown, not for Bryce, but he got to be the guy that extended the K-State draft streak in 2012 thanks to this. I still laugh at Mitch Fortner telling the story about He was in New York when that draft was going on. So he went and sat at Radio City Music Hall and waited until a K-State player got picked. And Bryce Brown was the one that came up. The what ifs. Go ahead with your rando.
My random player, Jared Volker, because like that's the only play at K-State that I remember. And then my notable moment from the broadcast, not only playing on 9 networks, K-State had a game called by a young Joel Klatt and multiple games called by a young Brock Heward.
Yeah.
Like imagine that back then. Like now.
Well, and think of Brian Greasy. Like those are 3 that age well. Those guys got elevated to top 2 teams at the networks that they eventually worked on. So yeah, the shout out to them there. The other what if that I would throw into this, I thought about last night. Now, obviously, it was a few years after and everything, but say for whatever reason that Ron Prince is able to buy a couple extra years, or the guy after him, they don't go back to Bill Snyder. Bill Snyder doesn't want to come back or whatever. Do we think Tyler Lockett still ends up at K-State?
Yeah.
If Bill's not there or somebody Bill adjacent wasn't in place?
Probably not with Prince, but I think yes, if anybody else. My what if is actually also related to Tyler Lockett, and it is a kind of a bad what if. Mine is a what if Bill elected to just redshirt Tyler Lockett. What does the season look like if true freshman Tyler Lockett isn't playing?
Would have been insane. That might have been something that 2018 Bill would have done. 2011 Bill was a little sharper than that, I think. There's really no way to rate this season. I mean, in terms of non-Big 12 championship years for us, like it's probably my favorite non-Big 12 title season.
For a non-Big 12 championship winning season, this is probably a 10.
Yeah. So
you beat the Heisman winner that year. Every game outside of OU was like was a fever dream. Mm-hmm. Like it's a 10 for me.
Yeah. You don't get a season much better than this in terms of excitement. The fact that they made the jump from, a pedestrian 7-5 team the year before, 7-6, I guess, if you count the loss in the Pinstripe Bowl. But then you make this jump to 10 wins. You're in the top 10 at the end of the season. Like just a crazy fun season and instrumental, obviously, in what took place the next season. Unfortunate that a guy like Tyson Hartman only got to be on like the 2011 team. Emmanuel Lemur, same type of deal. We've talked about him a couple times throughout KSO Classic. Another one of those guys that was on the 2011 team, but exhausted their eligibility, so couldn't be on 2012. But just 2 great years of K-State football that are very important to certainly people in our age range, because it's number 1 for us. And obviously outside of 98 to 03, like the stretch of 2011 to 2014 is one of the most significant in terms of the elevation that was there with where the program was nationally, and that you secured 2 of your Big 12 titles in those seasons, in that stretch. So that it's fun to look back on and think about.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun to go back and really dive in more towards 2011, because it's just such a fun season. Yeah. I was gonna joke that I can't wait to somehow see Braden Wilson like in the crowd next week in the 2 games that we do.
Yeah, it's bound to show up. I don't know. He's always in there. All right, we'll get out of here because tight timeline. We made it close, only about 5 minutes past when I needed to get out, so we're good there. We'll start fresh next week. We've got a lot of things we need to do. There will be a Sunday show this weekend, first one of the year with KSU Fan. We have 2 KSO Classics that are going to get knocked out early next week. That way they're in place before we go to Ireland. We need to record a game preview pod, and we may throw something else out there as well. For Drew Galloway, I'm Mason Vo. Thanks for watching and listening to K-State Online. Head on over to cats2ireland.com if you're trying to figure out what the heck am I going to do over there? What do I need to go see? They can still help you out in some capacity, because we are 8 days away from kickoff.